Let's talk bullpen. Is it time to be nervous about what the Mariners may or may not have to start the season? Today's news was a bit of a surprise, only a bit, because when you're talking about rehab and recovery and coming back from any kind of pitching injury, sometimes one step forward can lead to two steps back. Is that what we are dealing with Gregory Santos? It might have been one step forward, one step back. Let's go ahead and put it that way. It does appear that it is a minor setback, but it is a setback that is going to require a shutdown, and so that, of course, will push his timeline further back. So where does that leave the Mariners? We know Matt Brash will not be ready to start the season. He's doing okay. We'll talk about that a little bit later in this video. I think there was some sliver of hope that some were holding out, that perhaps Santos would be ready to go, but I don't think that was ever likely, not if you looked at the calendar. What happened was he got back up on the mound the last few days, was able to throw his first bullpen. Unfortunately, when he was warming up for his second bullpen yesterday morning, he felt kind of a pinch in the same area, not the exact same spot, but the same area that gave him trouble and led to the original shutdown. At that point, he stopped. He did not throw another pitch. He did not throw another toss, nothing. He stopped. Trainers got in, took a look at him, and for safety's sake, went and had an MRI done. MRI revealed there was some inflammation in the lat, slightly different area where the other problem was, but it was very, very minor. So they're calling it a very mild lat strain. Regardless, this is going to push his timeline back, and there is no question he will miss opening day. For him, it's just going to be kind of rest, a little bit of rehab, work in the training room, and anti-inflammatories before they can get him back out on the field. But as Justin Hollander told us, we're talking weeks, not days. When he said weeks, I think some people kind of panicked, and rightly so. If you read that, I don't think he was talking a lot of weeks. I think he was probably talking more a couple of weeks. So we'll see. No timelines on these, and if you take a look at what just happened here, I think you can see why. You just don't know until they get up and they are throwing 100%, and you probably don't even know until they get into a game and they're going max effort plus. So we're going to have to wait and see. But bottom line, no Matt Brash opening day, no Gregory Santos opening day. So what does that mean? First thought was, thank goodness they signed Ryan Stanek. I think he's going to be ready. It's not 100% that he will be ready. He has been working out. He has been throwing bullpens, but if there's any question there, I'm sure they'll be careful as well. That said, he's a veteran. I don't think he will need too much to get set, but it really sets up an interesting situation for the Mariners and the bullpen that in the last, say, 3-4 weeks, I think they thought was set. Let's take it all the way back to the fall. The bullpen was an area that I was concerned about going into the off season. For me, they never really replaced Paul Sewald, and I think this bullpen and this team and this entire pitching staff works best when you have kind of a three-headed monster of three high leverage arms at the back of that pen. After Paul Sewald was traded, they had two. For the majority of the offseason, they only had two, and then you even subtracted Justin Topa from the mix, so even more concerning there. Of course, early February, they signed Santos, huge arm to have in that group, and he felt good about things, and that didn't last long. Went ahead and wrote these things down because I want to make sure I have this correct, but we had been projecting a bullpen before the injuries of Brash, Munoz, Santos, Spire, Saucedo, Thornton, Austin Voth, and then he had a question mark. So there was probably only one spot conceivably open coming into camp, and early on that looked like that was going to be Jackson Kowar, who had a couple of brilliant outings. You loved the stuff that he was flashing. He's a little bit older. He really kind of bought into what they were trying to do with him, and he had the look of somebody who not only could make this pen, but perhaps as the season went on, maybe even be in one of those leverage situations. Big projection to make, but very encouraging what we saw from him. Unfortunately, he came down with the elbow injury. He's going to have Tommy John surgery, so that spot opens up again. So right now, if they had not added Stanek, it would have been 3 spots open in the bullpen. Fortunately now, it is just 2. When you look at the competition, I think things are starting to sort themselves out in the arms that were brought into camp. Some were kind of low-level free agent signs, some were waiver claims, some were trades. But the bottom line is they do have some interesting arms. Keep an eye on Carlos Vargas. I would probably, if they just had one spot open, let him start in the minors and continue the work that he is going on right now. Maybe you move that forward a little if he is able to show good command. Now, he's pitching today, and he could totally blow it with what I'm saying, or I could totally curse him with what I'm saying, but to date, he's only walked one batter in the spring training games. So kind of the knock on him has been command, and that has not been an issue as of late, or let's say control hasn't. Command as far as where he's putting the pitches, perhaps it's not the best. Perhaps there are a couple of 3-ball counts, but as far as walks go, he has not been walking batters, and the stuff has been electric. They're kind of reworking not the pitches themselves, but the usage, the targeting, the intent behind them. He's all in, and we really like what we have seen from him. You're going to have a couple of long guys in this bullpen. Austin Voth, who was signed to a major league contract, should be one of those. He's had some ups and downs, but they're going to need guys that can give multiple innings. Trent Thornton will be another one of those guys, but Austin Voth likely has one of those spots. Other arms of interest, one that's been getting a lot of notice lately has been Tyson Miller. You might have read some of the quotes from Scott Service, who was comparing him to Paul Sewald. He's a guy that had 4 pitches. The last 2, he didn't throw very much, but it looks like they kind of want to ditch them all together and focus on the fastball and the slider. Sound familiar with Sewald? The arm angles similar as well. The sweeper with the big sweep. You never want to have a full comparison to anybody. I think it's just kind of more of an aid to kind of let you visualize what he can do. And of course, he doesn't have the experience that Sewald has now, nor has he walked the path that Sewald had. But the stuff has been interesting. It's played well in the early games. I would think he's got a good shot at one of these spots as well. Then you've got Cody Bolton, a name that has come up quite a bit when you ask the skipper for somebody who stood out after a start or after a game. He kind of has more of a starter profile with the repertoire that he has, is mid-90s with the fastball, which is good, has the breaking pitches as well, and can give multiple innings. As I just mentioned a second ago, the multiple innings are going to be important because you're going to need to conserve those leverage arms at the back of the pen. Back in the old days when you only had 3 on the bench, you could protect them regardless. Now that you have only got 8 in the pen, you could foresee some situations early if a starter got knocked out where you might have to go to one of those leverage guys to kind of cover a little bit of a game that's already out of hand. You don't want that. If you have the guys that can cover multiple innings, you're in better shape for that. Bolton will kind of help along those lines. Those are just a couple of names. Ty Buttery has showed up with some really impressive velocity. I think you'll keep an eye on that throughout the camp and where that goes. And when it comes to the final decision, there could be some surprises. There could also be some late ads as teams cut their rosters down, and options could come into play too. So if you wonder why somebody who by the numbers perhaps hasn't had the best spring training makes the team, it might be because that player is out of options and they want to give him a little bit more of a look before they close the door there. Kind of among those players, Trent Thornton, who I think is on the team regardless, and he's reworked some things. So if you don't like the numbers that you're seeing with him right now, he's kind of getting used to some things in some games. Give it a little bit of time. Austin Voth is out of options as well, so that's another one where they may or may not have to make a call and go from there. But I think that early on, those are names that you probably would feel good about being in that bullpen because of the innings that they are able to give. So those are just a few names that could come into play. Am I nervous about what they have? I've already had a lot of people talk to me. If you're going into a season, no Matt Brash, no Gregory Santos. Well, yes. I mean, Brash in particular is not replaceable by one person. You absolutely, as I said earlier in this video, want to have that 3-headed monster, and they don't have that. Do they have enough arms to get by? I think so. So you are kind of hoping at this point that you're not looking at too long with either Brash or Gregory Santos, and you're really hoping that you don't have a bigger setback. That is something that I think is worth being nervous about until they are back on the hill, throwing 100%, not just throwing 100%, but throwing max effort in games. When you have the big lights on you, when you have the big crowds, when the actual pressure is there, things are very different, and that does affect the effort that you throw into a pitch, and physically that could affect things as well. So yeah, this is kind of an uncertain time for the team right now, but they made a very good move in going and getting Ryan Stanek, and I think they can feel better about things along those lines. But ideal, Absolutely not. Go ahead and stay tuned to us on Seattle Sports. We'll update you on all of the battles with the bullpen as well as kind of updates on the injuries with these players. I can tell you Matt Brash did have his throwing session today. Talked to him afterwards. He's just playing catch right now, trying to extend out, but he said today went very well. So that's good news for today. That's how it works. For now, I'm Shannon Drayer. You can follow me on Twitter at Shannon Drayer and, of course, on SeattleSports.com.